Welcome back to the Morning Brief. You just saw that video, Bring Back Betta. Some people advocating that she should be given a second chance. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Betta is a suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. There were allegations of fraud in that ministry involving her and other people, including NSIPA, as well as a former minister. So it's a gamut of issues running into tens of billions of naira. Just remember, it's still an allegation. They are being investigated. But whilst that is going on, well, some people are saying, give her a chance. Maybe it was a bureaucratic naivety or whatever they describe it as. Well, that is the fulcrum of our conversation today on the program. And we're being joined right here in our Lagos studio to provide perspective to what is happening in the country as far as that issue is concerned. The video you saw, as well as the ongoing investigations. Human rights activist, public interest lawyer, legal practitioner, we will say, Mr. Inibe Effiong joins us in our Lagos studio. Inibe, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you. Good to be here.
And also from our Abuja studio, we have legislative and policy analyst and president Project Hope Alive Africa. Joining us from our Abuja studios, Mr. Chibuzo Okereke. Mr. Chibuzo, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mr. Chibuzo, let me start with you because that is where everything is happening. That's the seat of power. So you're very close to action points at this very moment. There's a lot that has happened in that ministry. In fact, a lot of focus is on that ministry. Former minister has been investigated. The current one is being investigated. A head of a department is being investigated. So there's an avalanche of investigation going on, and these are all allegations until we find out exactly from the anti-graft agency what is going on. But I may want you to quickly react to the video you saw before we get deeper into the conversation. Now, people are saying, she didn't steal any money or she didn't do this or that. Let's give her a second chance and all of that. What do you make of the situation?
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, if you have been accused of corruption, you immediately have the toga of leprosy, which means everybody should avoid you and stay away from you. And I have been one of the lonely voices. I have said, let us interrogate the issues critically. Under our laws, if you have been accused, you remain innocent until proven guilty. But if you even look closely on the issues surrounding the suspended minister, my focus is on what we have known publicly. First is that there is a memo that the money should be credited to the program manager, 585 million naira for disbursement to the vulnerable groups. Second is that there is an award to the tune of 3 billion for the audit of the National Social Register. And then, of course, the third one is about a memo where some officials of the agency were requesting for flight money to fly to Kogi, where we don't have, airports. And respectfully, I think that the president may have been pressured to suspend the minister without, respectfully I said so, without looking critically on all these issues. First, let's take the issue of the memo. People have been citing financial regulations of the federal government number 713 that deals with issue of account and checks, that says personal money should not be paid into government accounts, and then no government public fund should be paid into personal account. And that has been what the coordinated media effort against the minister have been focusing on. Nobody has brought attention to this provision on advances, non-personal advances, as provided in Financial Regulation number 1402, sub-I and III. Under that provision, non-personal advances is granted to officials in their official capacity. If someone is a program manager or project accountant for special programs of government, and he has the responsibility to be the accounting officer for the disbursement of that money. I didn't make that provision, and I'm sure Minister Betta didn't make that particular provision under the financial regulation. So if our argument is that those laws has potential, element for corruption, then we can think about reviewing those regulations and not claim that if somebody receives non-financial and non-personal advances for disbursement for special program, who is under the law the accounting officer, and our focus is not whether those monies have been disbursed to the targeted people and where are the retirement evidence for the disbursement. Rather, we called for the minister to be suspended for doing something that actually the law provided for. Now, whether that law is right or not is a different issue, but the action itself, does it constitute an infraction or intention to commit fraud?
Mr. Okereke.
Fraud is committed on both an act and intention to do so. Then,
just a moment. Let's bring in Inibe here so we can have like a brisk back and forth on this one. Let's have a rich conversation. Inibe, he says it's meant to be innocent until proven guilty. You've asked for her to even resign. So that's sort of like guilty until you're proven innocent. I know that applies in other crimes, but not here. He's talking about the provisions, non-personal advances. You know these laws. Your thoughts?
I completely disagree with what he has said. I think this is a serious matter. There are a lot of questions that the suspended minister has not answered. One of which is she the accounting officer of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, or is it the permanent secretary that is supposed to have been the accounting officer? Does the minister under the law have the power to have even approved that payment, or is it the permanent secretary that is supposed to do so? Now, what is the position of the Accountant General of the Federation on the matter? The Accountant General of the Federation has gone on public record to say that, look, suspended Minister Betta had written to me seeking approval for this payment, and I declined to give it. And I even counseled her that this is not how it is done. But she clearly flouted the position of the Accountant General. She usurped the responsibility of the permanent secretary of the ministry and then caused this money to be credited into that account. Now, I have listened to the guest from the Abuja studio who is saying, advance for non-personal, whatever that he has described. The truth of the matter is that when you look at the financial regulations, right, which he has also referenced, section 7 or clause 713, it is clear that public funds cannot be paid into personal accounts. And that provision further says that once you have committed that infraction, there's a presumption of fraud. In other words, that any public officer who ensures or facilitates the payment of public funds into private accounts is deemed to have done so with fraudulent intention. So this is not a case of, just mere administrative lapse. The truth of the matter is that this matter came to public light because the agency, the social intervention agency, was, they were exposed. And then they had to, in turn, possibly also expose the minister. So we cannot excuse what has happened. But let us even look at it more thoroughly, right? Part of these monies that Betta approved, they claim that 219 million of that money was to be paid to indigent persons from my home state, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Lagos, and Ogun. I'm challenging Betta to mention the people that are beneficiaries, because before you even say
paid. Not paid yet, so clearly they can't.
Yes, it was to be paid. So but if you have an intention to pay and you set an amount for it, it presupposes that you have already decided the number of beneficiaries and who those beneficiaries are supposed to be. So let Nigerians see who these persons that were to be credited with these monies are. And nobody can tell me that the whole federal government of Nigeria, the whole Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Accountant General could not have directly credited the beneficiaries of this money. That we had to go through somebody, an official of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, pay the money into our account. Does the account statement of that officer, is it an official document of the federal government of Nigeria? Can Betta write to the bank? That is the question I want the media to ask the gentleman. Can Betta write to the bank of this official and say, please give me an account statement? The answer is no, because of principle of confidentiality. That is the reasoning of the law in saying that you cannot pay public funds into private accounts, because it is private. The minister could not have demanded for an account statement. Can the minister do that? The answer is no, because it is personal account. So what are they saying? This should never have happened. And because it has happened, there has to be consequences for it. So we cannot excuse it that, oh, she was overexcited or she was so ready to serve. I have even gone further to say that beyond the suspension, the entire ministry should be scrapped.
But Mr.
It should be scrapped.
Mr. Ifeanyi, you said earlier that she usurped the Accountant General's authority and caused the monies to be credited into the private account. Do you have evidence to that effect?
The Accountant General has said so publicly.
No, the Accountant General has said that she did not act on the instruction from the minister unless there's something new to that effect.
She wrote to the Accountant General. The Accountant General said that he replied her to say that this is not how this is done. That is what I read in the public space. In other words, the Accountant General declined to give approval or credence to the request by the minister. So if the Accountant General has this, and in fact, the Accountant General even said that payment of public funds into private account is illegal. He said that, she said that more.
So do we have evidence that indeed the monies had been credited to the private account?
It has not been disputed. She has admitted it. It has not, even the gentleman has admitted.
No.
Well,
it is not in dispute that
the monies were paid into the private project account.
An official of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, right? The person they refer to as project manager or whatever. It is not disputed that the sum of 585 million was paid into that account.
It is.
That has not been contested.
That's what, and you just referenced that the Accountant General said that she
still went ahead.
No. So let me read the statement from the Office of the Accountant General, January the 6th, 2024, saying OAGF does not make payment on behalf of MDAs. And it says that the allocations are released to self-accounting MDAs in line with the budget, and such MDAs are responsible. And it goes on to say that the AGF explained that although the office received the said request from the ministry, it did not carry out the payment. The ministry was, however, advised on the appropriate, which is what you referenced. There was a response to the ministry advised on the appropriate steps to take in making such payments in line with the established payment procedure. But it says it did not carry out such payment.
I'm saying that my understanding of the facts is that she wrote to the Accountant General, right, and say, can this be done? The Accountant General says, well, such payments can go through the agencies directly. But the question of whether, the point I'm making is that the question of whether under our law, under the public service rules, under the Nigerian financial regulations, whether public funds can be paid into private accounts, the Accountant General answered that question in the negative, that this cannot be done. So I am asking, when suspended Minister Betta took the decision for that money to go into private account, what was in her mind? Who were supposed to be the final beneficiaries of this money? And why was this particular official, insulated? And I've asked that the guest should also address that question. Can the minister, can the Accountant General, can even the President of Nigeria request for the account statement of this official? The answer is no, because you have the bank will not honor it except with the court order. The bank cannot honor it because it is personal account. So if it is personal account, why are you using the account of an individual to pay public funds to people?
Well, Mr. Okereke will respond to that. And while you're doing that also, in addition to that, those who have argued that she will actually survive this have said that Treasury single account guidelines, I don't know if it's the same that you were quoting, actually allow for the payment of monies for ministry projects to be paid into private accounts. We'll get to you again, Mr. Inibe, to provide the legal perspective. But the question is, when guidelines run afoul of, supreme laws, which takes precedence? Go ahead, Mr. Okereke.
Thank you very much. I've listened to my colleague with rapt attention. I think he's arguing on effects and not on the cause. There is no effect without a cause. And with the leave of our anchors, I would like to read the provision on Financial Regulations number 1402, sub I. It said, advances for non-personal are those advances granted to an officer in his official capacity. Then the III said, in the disbursement of funds for non-personal advance for project or special programs where these humanitarian activities fall under. He said the leader of the project special program shall be the accounting officer and shall approve all payment, while an accountant of an appropriate grade shall be attached to each project or special program and shall have the responsibility for the disbursement as well as retirement of those funds. This is the provision of the law. When you talk about clause 713, you are dealing with the pre-TSA era, when agencies of government can open accounts in commercial banks. Today, agencies of government have become self-accounting bodies. So Accountant General Office simply credits them and then they manage their affairs according to the budgetary provision. So the question, we are not arguing whether the lists, the people have been credited or what have you. We are dealing with the specific action as to whether under our laws can you credit an officer in his official capacity to disburse monies for government? And the answer is yes. In the last administration, we even saw our vice president, former vice president, in the market distributing cash to individuals under the market money or what have you. So the issue as to whether our laws provide. Now, when somebody, I'm coming, please. No, I need to have time to explain myself. My colleague had, quite a number of.
We don't have so much time, so if you can land on your thoughts, yes, go ahead.
When somebody is functioning in an official capacity, you cannot classify the person as private. My colleague, as a lawyer, he knows this quite well. If you're functioning in an official capacity and funds has been advanced to you to perform a responsibility under your official capacity, that could not become private. It is no longer private. And I tell you, if we want a situation where we can ask for accountability of that, that is entirely a different. I'm not here to argue. I'm not in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, neither am I the spokesperson of the minister. I am saying when these things happen, let us interrogate it critically and not take people to slaughter them even before we look at our laws. The law is clear that the accounting officer is the program manager attached with a project accountant, and they shall be responsible for disbursement. Whether they disburse by cash or by account is what I'm not able to discuss, because that is not the cause of the issue. The issue is, under our law, is it possible to credit somebody in his official capacity to do disbursement for government? And the answer is yes.
Mr. Okereke, the reason I've been trying to button so that you can respond, it's a bit almost confusing. The same laws you're quoting, 1014, has the same provision, 713. So first question, are these laws in conflict? Because, just hold on, Mr. Okereke, if you don't mind, please. Are these laws in conflict? Yeah. That's on one hand. It's also a bit confusing that when the minister wrote to the accountant general advised otherwise. So is there a bit of what I continuously call bureaucratic naivety on all sides? Or the law is in conflict with itself? No, two questions. Is the law in conflict with itself, or this is something we can't explain?
No, I don't think there is conflict of laws. First, I think there is need for a review of those laws. Clause 713 deals with account and checks that provided that agencies of government will have only 3 levels of account in commercial banks, which is the revenue account, the salary account, and the overhead account. Today is no longer possible because under the TSA, agencies of government cannot open a commercial bank account. This is the new era. So I think there's, and then there's the clause 1402 sub III is dealing with special programs and projects. It is not, now when there is special programs and projects or operations, operational costs, then you can process funds to the officer responsible, who the law have now made the new accounting officer for the disbursement and retirement of those funds. And the argument is simple. If somebody is acting in an official capacity, it ceases to be private. This should be very clear. Then the issue of, yes, I agree, there seems to be some kind of bureaucratic lapses within the system, because One, the ministry is very much aware that they are self-accounting, officers. So I think that maybe what has happened that in the past, these programs were just programs of government under the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. In May 2023, the former president now signed the National Social Investment Program Act, making that particular program now an agency of government under the ministry. So transitioning from being a program to now have institutional framework as a self-accounting agency may have caused whatever issues, they had. And the accountant general said, you, the agency or ministry, you are a self-accounting unit. So you can post your transactions yourself. But you cannot continue to tag somebody who is an officer private. This is the concern. And this is what we need to reconcile. If you are functioning in an official capacity, you are no longer private. There is a difference between Bola Ahmed Tinubu and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. One is accountable to his family. The other is accountable to the public. Does that
also mean that their accounts, their belongings are also now government or not private or official in any case? Because I imagine a lot of people will now be stretching it. To what extent is that particular, example or instance that you give? But I'd like you to respond to the question he raised or the point he made. And also, is it enough? Because he has said that she's been investigated now 2 weeks. Some say there should have been some sort of outcome to that investigation already by the EFCC. Let us know what is going on. Isn't it taking too long? So I wonder, in addition to your response to him, do you see her coming back to FEC?
No, I don't expect her to come back, and I'm not being sentimental about it. Let me respond to the point he has made, that the official in question acted in a personal capacity. The issue is not whether this was a public official. The issue is, was this a personal account? What the law speaks to is the nature of the account. And I ask a question that my friend has not answered. Can President Tinubu, can the Accountant General demand for the account statement of this official from the bank? The answer is no.
Let's get into answer
and
now.
Is Minister Betta the accounting officer of the ministry, or is it the permanent secretary?
Okay, Mr. Okereke, can you quickly answer that quickly, just so you can...
So that I can continue.
Okay, let me say this. Yes, if you are an officer of government and you're acting in official capacity, your account statement is subject to scrutiny. It can be demanded because in the first instance, you have to retire the money. There is a procedure for retirement provided. That is number one. So if you, that account, so far you receive it in official capacity to perform a government function, account statement can be demanded at any time and provided. Because in the first instance, as the accounting officer for the program, you have responsibility to make retirement using specific template on how those money has been disbursed. So that is very possible and it can happen.
I don't agree with that. You have the principle of confidentiality in banking. This account is personal to her. This account was opened in the name of this official, using the BVN of this official. So you cannot say that the government can simply just tell her, go and bring your statement of account. It is personal, it is private. But the question is, did she even have the power to make this approval? Or is it the permanent secretary? Let's even assume that this payment is permissible as he has suggested.
No, I don't agree.
Is it the permanent secretary or the minister that should have exercised that function?
Let me tell you this, please.
Is it the permanent secretary or the minister?
Hold on, Mr. Okereke. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Okereke.
Go ahead, your response is a conversation.
Agencies of government, even in the legal firm of my colleague, when a letter is written to the chief executive. The chief executive, depending on the bureaucratic arrangement within the system, will look at it and send it to the appropriate officer that will deal with it. So you cannot be writing from outside a ministry or even a firm, and then the chief executive will not be the one to author the letter. Now, under that provision too, there is even sub-II, where the Minister of Finance has to approve a threshold for personal, non-personal advances. Is there?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Again,
Mr. Okereke, let him respond.
Let him respond. Mr. Okereke, hold on.
The permanent secretary is
Let him respond. Let him respond.
Again, the facts should be respected. Namely, that it was suspended Minister Betta who gave it approval and not the permanent secretary. That has not been challenged. And under the financial regulations of this country, it is the permanent secretary that is accounting officer of a ministry. Secondly, this agency, Social Intervention Agency, is a creation of law. It has a status of its own. So at what point did the minister, under what section of the act creating this agency, is the minister even authorized to do this? And I've asked the question that beyond the surface, I'm putting a challenge today, and I hope EFCC will answer that question. Because it is not enough to say, let us recall her. Who are the beneficiaries? And I'm biased a bit because my home state, Akwa Ibom, is mentioned. That 219 million was supposed to go to some indigent people in Akwa Ibom, some to Cross River, Lagos, where we are now, and Ogun State. Who were going to be the final beneficiaries of this money? If at the end of the investigation, EFCC cannot answer that question, with the identities of those persons, their accounts, their residents, there will be no basis to recall her. Because this has been going on. We have been hearing donations in the market. We have been hearing N-Power over the years. We have now seen that the government is saying they want to even spend 3 billion to audit the social register, which is even scandalous to begin with. What are you spending 3 billion to audit? I mean, it is embarrassing. The sort of things we hear in this country. So I am saying that these social intervention schemes or programs should be scrapped. It has not altered the poverty ratio in the country. It has not had any effect on inflation. It has not reduced the purchasing power of the Nigerian people. Let us scrap it completely. I don't see the need for it.
Or improve the purchasing power, you meant?
Yes, it has not improved the purchasing power of the people.
Right.
On the contrary, what we have seen over the years is a climate of secrecy. Like the one is mentioned about the vice president going to the market to throw money. Nobody can tell us who the beneficiaries of this money.
That's
so President Tinubu, yes,
just to read.
President Tinubu cannot say he wants to continue with these programs without telling Nigerians the people that have benefited over the years.
Well, he has suspended it, but there are statements, guys, from X and WhatsApp. Orebi Emmanuel saying, I disagree with the guest from Abuja studio, Betta Edu, as someone that has served as commissioner in her state before and gone through retreats and induction on how to carry out her duties as minister, should know better. That's what Orebi Emmanuel says.
And this one is coming from... so you will respond. However it concerns any of you, you kindly respond. This person from on WhatsApp said we should forget about the trending video and allow the government continue with their investigation. Edu must be investigated. Bukola, you have the next one.
This one is, should I help out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it says, good morning. Yes, it is possible to credit project manager's account, but there are thresholds. And the minister told us that the funds shall be credited directly to the beneficiary's account with commercial banks through the CBN after the accounts have been duly verified. You didn't tell us your name, but that's also from WhatsApp. And just to state that this conversation is also centered around ensuring that we put the right checks and balances in place so that we don't keep going over this time and again. I mean, this is 2024, for crying out loud. You'll expect that some of these things should not even be talked about as much. We should focus on more developmental issues. So perhaps we can also wind down final words on how to ensure that this does not happen again, and that's from Mr. Okereke and you as well, Mr. Effiong, just to ensure that we have a fail-safe system in place such that public monies are well accounted for and properly dispersed.
Yeah, just to add to what my colleague Kayode has said, for both of you as well, if you can remember his first question, just to add to that, what happens to the issue of crediting these accounts directly? Maybe just an addition so that we don't lose trail of our conversation. Mr. Okereke, first to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that this is probably the only point where I have to agree with my colleague there. If you claim you have credited people money, where is the evidence? I agree completely. this is an important program, and we're saying it's to the vulnerable people. So there should be proper accountability and transparency. You cannot credit people in the realms or in the spirit. There have to be individuals who has received those money, and Nigerians deserve to know them. So that is taken. Nobody can argue that, because we can't run a program or run a country with 130 million multidimensionally poor people, and we are not able to ensure that the intervention programs get directly to the people, who need them. So I completely agree that accountability is key. And I think that the president perhaps has taken the most important decision, and that decision to commission a panel to look critically at the accounting system and financial protocols for most of this intervention. And this should be extended to other MDAs and ministries of agencies of government, because it is not just about humanitarian affairs. Every particular agency of government in Nigeria today have a threshold of funds they process into public officers' account, for operational costs or overhead. And they use this money through their own account, whether for fueling of their vehicles or getting flight tickets for their travels and what have you, and then they retire it. That is the protocol. So if we feel there is potential for fraud within this accounting system that is prevalent, then we can make a review and ensure that this program happens properly. So the social intervention program defines the character of a renewed hope administration. So I support that the program should go on, but in a re-engineered and
Mr. Okereke,
reworked manner, so that
point made. Just so we can anchor. There's a message for you, by the way, yes. Mr. F. Young, and this is from Timmy Diafarino on WhatsApp, saying the young minister is facing a backlash from exposing the wanton corruption in SIPA, and people like you, he alleges, are helping the people who want Betta Edu out by distracting everyone with 582 million naira, whereas 44 billion naira is in the air. And the message goes on. But let's wind down with that recommendation.
Those officials are also being investigated. In all this, let us not forget, there was also a memo for people to mysteriously and spiritually fly to a certain airport in Kogi State, an airport that is only known to the minister. The Nigerians do not know where it actually, even the governor of Kogi State doesn't know where it is situated. But I think at the appropriate time, she will tell us where that airport is. Regarding the video about those who were singing Bola on your mandate, I think the president should be scandalized. What is the mandate they are talking about? Is it a mandate of accountability? Is it a mandate of corruption? Is it a mandate of infractions? What is the mandate they are talking about? So let us stop this thing we do in the country, that once the officials are accused of infractions, people begin to go carry placards. If you go and interview those women, you will be surprised. They won't even know why they were gathered. They won't even know what the issues are about. So let us stop this culture of elevating of trivializing serious conversations. The minister has been rightly suspended. The EFCC is carrying out investigation. If at the end of the day it is found truly that there is no airport in Kogi State, and a memo was issued that officials or aides of the minister should be paid, then there has to be consequences for it.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, but we also understand that, when it comes to ministries, there are approval limits. Anything beyond 20 million, I think, has to go to the minister and all of that. But it's a never-ending conversation. That's why there's an investigation.
Yes.
When the authorities have swooped in to ensure that everybody who is involved is asked the questions, and if anybody is found culpable, they are brought to book. And everyone is looking forward to that outcome at the end of the day. I must thank you, Mr. Inibe Fiong, human rights and public interest lawyer, legal practitioner here in Lagos. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chibuzo Okereke, legal, legislative and policy analyst, as well as the president, Project Hope Alive Africa, who joined us from Abuja studio. Mr. Okereke, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, there's a lot more coming on the program. And of course, we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears on this investigation. As soon as it's out, we'll be the first to let you know. But we'll now switch gears to some other thing when we come back after this break. What does it take to work with the president for 8 years, capturing every moment of his mid-air, on land, on the sea? The man who photographed President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years will join us on the program to tell us exactly what that entails and what he's up to after leaving office. Join us again.